All right. So we're gonna talk a little bit about somatic shaking for the nervous system, and then we are going to do our TRE release, which I'm excited to share with you guys. So under somatic shaking, we'll start to read, and it says, as we know, stress management is crucial to overall well-being. Shaking therapy is one such management technique. It's also known as therapeutic or neurogenic tremoring, phrase coined by David Berceli, PhD. And the approach involves shaking the body to release tension and trauma, helping to regulate the nervous system. Dr. Peter Levine, he's another trauma specialist doctor, developed somatic experiencing as a body-based therapy to process and release trauma in his book, Waking the Tiger, Healing Trauma. And Levine notes that animals can be observed shaking to release tension and stress, as you might have seen in a dog sometimes when they get injured, or you'll see them shake out right away, or maybe they're wrestling with one another and then they shake off right away. And the shaking or vibrating helps to release muscular tension, burn excess adrenaline, and also calm the nervous system to its natural state, thereby managing stress levels in the body. So we'll be learning a few different shapes that you can add into any yoga practice or just do all on their own. So I teach another class. I teach another class that's called Shakti, and it's a tantric practice. And so we do a lot of shaking in that one as well. And so I bring in some of those things that we do in that practice. And so the first one that we do is down dog. And it's also a reflexology because we're hitting the kidney 1 point or the bubbling spring on the bottom of the foot. And so it's kind of double medicine as we get reflexology, and then we're also getting a somatic shake. So what you do is you simply come into downward facing dog. And I think I probably told you guys to do this even after we did our pigeon pose, and then we just started shaking. So you come into down dog, and then you just start to pulse the heels up and down. So my toes are staying on the floor, the toe pad is staying on the floor, and I'm just pumping the heels. So this is one way we can start to bring in shake into our yogic practice. The second one is going to be a wide leg shake. You can do it either standing in forward fold or waddling in wide leg forward fold. So if we're standing, I always say it's kind of like waddle. It could be like this. So do it. Hold. So again, I'm just like pushing right left foot, and I'm getting more reflexology. I'm starting to shake the areas where the energy gets stuck and stagnant. We also did the Qigong horseman pose, which I don't know if it's on the list, but it's similar to kind of the one we're doing. So that one's the shoulder width apart. We put the generous bend in the knees, and then we just like we're riding a horse. So there's 3. And the waterfall leg shake, I know you guys have done with me also. That one's the dead bug kind of movement where we're on our backs. And we just tantrum out the legs. You can even shake out the hands when you're here. It feels good.
I love that one.
So that one's good too. And full body mountain pose shake. This is just like, especially if we've got music in a class, it'd be extra fun. But you just start to like shake out everything, like bounce, and shake. You can shake your hands, you can shake your legs. Just a full body shake. You could also just shake. And then our next one is not going to be something that we intend to bring the shaking medicine in, but it's going to be a result of getting into the trauma release. And then the shake happens kind of automatically. So all of the ones except for TRE are going to be, we are shaking the body. Whew, that just got me out of breath with like the tiniest bit of exertion. And so TRE is a little different in the sense that it's going to cultivate the shake. So we'll talk about TRE. And so TRE is tension and trauma release exercise. It's a simple yet innovative series of exercises that assist the body in releasing deep muscular patterns of stress, tension, and trauma. Created by Dr. David Bercelli. TRE safely activates a natural reflex mechanism of shaking or vibrating that releases muscular tension, calming down the nervous system. And when this muscular shaking, vibrating mechanism is activated in a safe and controlled environment, the body is encouraged to return back to the state of balance. So, what they have you do before you come into kind of the shake is to prime and prep the body. And we're going to go through each of these steps. So we'll talk about them and then we'll practice. The first one is spread your legs shoulder widths apart. It's for stretching the ankles. And then we simply roll side to side. Sorry to keep moving you guys around. So my feet is going to be kind of like rolling up, coming to the side to side. That's the first step. And then the second one, or did I do it wrong? I did do it wrong. No, I didn't. And then the second one is stretching the calf muscle. So what they do here is take one foot forward and one foot back. Start to forward. What I'm doing is on the front half, I'm starting to feel that extension. Another way you could do this too, which I kind of like better, is just both legs at the same time. I'm gonna do that till we get to the point where we feel like we're at a 7. Don't really more. 7. These want to feel some sort of exertion in the calves before we move to the next one. And then our next one is going to be stretching the upper legs. So let's see, place one leg in front of the other, just like we did a moment ago. And then we're going to lower the hips slightly as if we're sitting in a chair. We're going to lower like down into a chair. Down, coming up. And then the fourth exercise is stretching your inner legs, hips, and thighs. So we stand with our feet comfortable width apart. And then we come into a forward bend. It says with your hands at the center, take 3 deep breaths and relax while allowing gravity to really let your body stretch. Then you can slowly walk your hands to one foot and hang on to the leg or the floor. Take 3 deep breaths. And then you can walk over to the other side. And take 3 deep breaths here. Our hands back to the center. And we roll it up nice and slow for our next stretch. Stretching the front of the body. So what we do here is bring our hands to our lower back, looking down or up, bending our knees slightly and blow your back slightly as you move your hips forward. So we do that little bend to open up. Gently rotate to one side, looking behind and keeping position. So taking 3 deep steps. So we're looking behind. Switching sides. And then we're going into the wall sit exercise. So for this one, we come to a wall position and we find our seat. So we don't want to go to our 10. We want to go to our 7, to our wall sits. And this one and the next one is where we hold it a bit longer. So as we come to this one, we hold it for 3 to 5 minutes. And while you're here, you should feel a good, probably shape starting to come out a little bit. Start to feel the energy wanting to move. And once we're done with 3 to 5 minutes of this, we allow ourselves to hang forward and forward fold. If we do this, the legs may start to shake here also. And we'll just take a whole minute here if possible, breathing. And then when we're done with that, we come onto the floor and into our butterfly pose. And this is where we really start to shape. So after we've done all these preparatory practices, then we come onto the floor into our butterfly or our Somatic. And then this is where we start to get the shape. So what we do is we open the knees and we come into the butterfly, but we allow the feet to be touching. So as the soles of the feet are touching, then the edges of the feet are resting on the floor. And I'll be sure to show you guys this again too. And then we lift our hips up off the ground. So maybe I better. So from here, feet are touching. If you can see, like I have the knife edge of my foot on the floor, not the feet. So the feet are touching, and then we lift our hips. So as we lift our hips here, then we hang out here for a little bit. And then down after a period of time. So that one, it says for 30 seconds, then gently press your hips back to the ground and let your knees relax for a moment. Slightly close your knees about an inch or two, and then we're gonna hold it for 2 minutes. So now that we did this one, we come down, we take a couple deep breaths. And if you watch my knees, this is where they are naturally. Now I'm gonna bring them to here and I'm gonna hold. So then as we're here, we're starting to hold this position for 2 minutes. It's quite normal for the shaking to start to take place here. Actually do this 3 more times. So we start to bring the legs closer the second time. Hold for another 2 minutes. Bring the legs closer again. Another 2 minutes. And then we go into the releasing of it. So then we start to lower the legs back out a little bit more. Hold it for 2 minutes. Lower the legs back out again for another 2 minutes. And then we release and get up and walk around. So it's quite normal that when we get into our 2 minute holds for the legs to be looking something like this, honestly. And it happens all on its own. But the legs start to find a tremor. And my best advice for allowing your body to get the best out of the release and the shape is to allow yourself to fully relax. Because we know that when we have tension in the body or resistance, then we don't allow that energy to move quite as much. And so as we come into the practice, I'm going to ask you guys to really allow yourselves to relax into especially the butterfly postures as we do that. You'll have to come into a nice deep breath. And afterwards, oftentimes the hips will be able to open up a lot wider than normal because the tension is released, and the tension is what's keeping those hips so tight. So this is such a great release. I'm really stoked to share it with you guys. It does oftentimes bring up stuff, even if it's just moving it out comfortably and easily. But sometimes it can have emotion, like any sort of release that we do. So if emotion does come up, I just want you to honor it. Remember, we're not seeking to feel happy all the time, but we're witnessing what's actually going on in our bodies without judging. And so when we do this, we allow for more of a healing practice as well as that energy.
I was curious if anyone else had feedback from their experience with the 108 ohms.
Oh, so I do.
Good
So
question.
within the first 5 minutes, I started crying. And
Mine was at 7 minutes. Sorry, I just had to say that.
no, you're good. So I had to stop and then like I journaled about it. And like, when I stopped and I journaled and I took that pause, I could feel like the resistance of not crying. And so when I turned it back on, within like the next minute, I started crying again. So yeah, I definitely cried during that.
Me too. I cried and then I tried to do it more and then I got tired and then cried and then finished it and then was so tired
Yeah.
but relaxed.
Oh, interesting. I made a little video about that. We were supposed to make a video of that experience, right?
Yeah, I saw that. It was beautiful. And I loved how you shared the crystal bowl too and the tone. It was so nice.
Me too.
So I didn't cry. It didn't bring anything negative up. I was just really digging that vibration through my body. And I didn't say it in the video, but it really made me feel grounded.
Yeah.
Present.
I was telling Cami too, because it's a low ohm. I really like that because the tone is low. So it is very grounded.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I have a question about Om because one time I was teaching and a guy gave me feedback that I was so like high with my tone. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry if I was too high for your normal Om, but that's the way I do it. So I don't know if there's like a way as a teacher to, when someone tells you that they're not used to your tone, like how do you respond?
I've never had that happen, but that's interesting. And I would say it's probably more about him than you.
Yeah.
Like
I didn't know how to respond. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
That tone could have been triggering for him,
exactly.
you know?
But there is no correct tone to omen.
I didn't think so.
I will say that as I learned it, it's 3 syllables, whereas a lot of the times we say just om, like it's mm. So like that's one way that I have been taught. So it sounds more like this. Om. And then also the other thing they say about om is that there's a vibration in the silence right after as well. And so it's nice to pause right after that and kind of bask in that frequency. And then we can see it again too, which I like because the guy, you can feel he has that kind of, it's like the perfect flow. It's like, and then there's a tiny little pause before he starts into the next one.
Yes.
Yeah, and also you're exhaling, so that pauses time to breathe as well, right?
Exactly.
For the next session. For that guy, I would have said, wow, that's really interesting. But I think Om is kind of a universal sound, so it's unique to each of us. So whatever note speaks to you, concentrate on your note because it's more difficult when everyone's on a different note in the room. And I've been in classes where the teacher is singing a note that is literally stressing me out, like this terrible, you know, some people are tone deaf, right? Like the sound was just so horrible. I really had to kind of, I could just block it out. So I get that some people don't realize how horrible they sound, you know.
I think I'm one of those.
They should speak out.
I was,
you know, there's a certain note that goes with each chakra, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If there are 2, most aren't, but yeah, so I chose the G bowl because that's the sound for the throat, and I was doing it very low because that's not a normal range for me, so I was doing it low, and the lower you go, the deeper the vibration.
Exactly.
Right? The higher note you go, the more you're in your head with it.
Higher octaves, the higher up we go in the chakras.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot too, like when people like listen to music, my partner plays music, he plays drums and the guitar, and he can always hear the beats. It's the first thing that he hears, and I always hear the tone. I always hear the lyrics and the tone and like those higher notes before I hear the lower notes. So I always think that's interesting. I think that has to do with us favoring certain energy centers and frequencies too. He likes to be way more in those lower chakras, and I love my upper chakras. So I think that also has to do with the tone preference that we like sometimes. Sometimes we like to tone in those places, like Deborah's saying, it might correlate to a certain chakra too that we need. So my own changes.
Yeah, right. Sometimes I do higher, lower, just.
Me too. Yeah.
Is there like a playlist or a song or something that does that chakra toning
I bet
throughout?
there is. I bet
There
there
has
is.
to be.
Because I know that like the singing bowls that are the crystal singing bowls like Deborah has, they are all each to an octave. So I'm sure there's a recording of somebody playing them for sure.
For
I'll
sure.
find and then I'll put in the group as well.
You know, they say that when you can tell your story and not cry, you've done some healing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that vibration may be bringing up, you know, unhealed
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
I can tell a lot of my story without crying, but there's still that I do cry about.
I think it's because it's so deep in us, engraved in our body, that we haven't been able to get it out fully, which is why when we're doing the Om or the somatic work, which I haven't ever done much somatic embodiment work, that why this is now finally still coming out of my body.
Mhm.
Yep.
Like
Yeah,
I've never,
vibration, so powerful. Vibrations, so powerful.
Mhm.
Energy is vibration. So
Mhm.
Totally.
yeah, I've never ohmed 108 times. And so that was very new for me. Like I've ohmed and I've done like the Om Namo Guru Dev Namo. And that was so powerful for me. Like I was so like, oh my God, I'm crying. Like, is this like normal? Like, am I supposed to be crying right now? You know? And so I just
cleanse,
went with it.
cleanse.
You know what else do I think about that? Like just for both you and Audrey is like, people who had to parent their parents in a sense, like you guys are holding space for the parents. And I think like when we connect to the divine, that's an energy of like very nurturing caretaking. And so like, as you guys step into that, it might also be that you're starting to receive that energy that like you are giving out so much, like the love and the tenderness and the care. And so now with the Om, you're connecting to the divine and the divine is holding that space for you. And I think too, it could feel very vulnerable because you've been needing that space to be held so that you can cry.
Yeah.
It's like we have to have someone hold the space so that we can feel like we can be vulnerable and like let that energy move.
Yeah.
And who better to hold the space than the divine? And Om is connecting to source specifically. So I think that that's such a healing practice too, is just like letting you guys be held instead of you having to hold like and be the caretaker, you know.
And
Yeah, I'm tired. My body's tired.
Yeah. And then I also found myself when I was doing the Om practice yesterday, I did the heart mudra. Like that's been like such a prominent mudra for me since we've done it, because it's really allowed me to release those emotions that are hard to release and cry, because it's so hard for me to cry sometimes.
Yeah, and that I was gonna tell you guys, in that pigeon pose practice we did yesterday, I was muted, but I was crying like out a lot of feelings from both sides, but specifically my right side.
The masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was actually surprised. Like I thought I would cry, but I was just like really hot on both sides. And then like on my masculine side, I felt it more in like my glutes, like the discomfort and the resistance. And then on my feminine side, I felt it more in like my upper thigh and like my knee. And so that was interesting to me too. And then I had like the ego come up on both sides in the knee, but it was a little bit more on the right side than it was on the left side. But there was still a lot of like discomfort and resistance on both sides a little bit. And I'm like, no, we got to do this. Just stay here. So
It's challenging.
yeah, it was very.
I was breathing like hell, like to just
I'm
stay
a colleague
breathing.
too.
I thought it was on mute, but oh well.
It was like the last 4 minutes for me where I started to feel really like I don't like this. Like, I really don't like this. I want to get out. And like, to
The
me, that
last 2
mimics.
minutes and on the feminine side, I felt the same way. I felt that.
Yeah.
I had that same energy.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like that it mirrors uncomfortable situations too when we get into them. And it's like if we're tired, we're just like, dude, I've had enough of this. I'm ready to get out. That's kind of how it was, the energy I felt like I was feeling. It was just like, all right, I'm like, let's do this.
I feel like if I would have done that practice by myself, I would have got out of it.
That's why we need to hold each other accountable.
Yes.
too.
Yeah, yeah,
everything.
absolutely. Like, I'm like, I was all laying there and I'm like, man, I'm so glad I'm doing this with these guys because I'd be done.
That's
Like,
good.
I'm so done.
It is. It lets us know we need
It's
that
like I'm all
accountability.
accountability. I'm all,
Yeah.
okay, we're doing this. I'm all, wow.
It's an important part to healing too.
I've been to classes where we do 108 sun salutations in a row.
Oh yeah, I do that.
Yeah, me too. I love
Yeah,
it.
I've done that like 4 times.
It's so meditative too. And I
Yeah.
feel like at some point, like, right, like you start to like ride the lightning. It's like you're not even like in it. You're just like cultivating more prana and chi, and
Mhm.
you're just like, boom, boom,
You're
boom,
just doing
boom,
the
boom,
motions,
boom,
yeah.
boom.
Why is 108 so spiritual? Do we know?
It's something that like they say is just an auspicious number for a lot of different reasons. I've heard several different ones. One of the ones that I recognize for myself is they say there's 108 marma points on the heart and so in the body. So as we purify each one of those, it's like a full healing. And then there's so many other reasons too. They say it's like the diameter of like around the earth or sun or something. I'm gonna put it in the chat too so you can see, but there's a lot of reasons why 108 is sacred, and they all have different reasons behind it too.
Nice.
And they got that number in the malas, right?
Yes, the mala.
And that's why, because they're like, we have to purify each of those marma points. So that's why they decided to do the 108.
I have
Norma and Ma. I've never heard of those terms before.
mala.
marma,
Yeah,
mala.
both of them.
So you
So
don't.
the mala
Mala?
beads.
Oh, I'm gonna have Maya make her mala. Send me your address, Audrey. I'm gonna have
Okay,
a mala made for you, and I'm gonna send it to you.
thank you.
Absolutely, honey.
I was in a mandala, women's circle in 2020 during COVID, and they were talking about different numbers being spiritual, like 333 and all these different things. And I was like,
Yeah,
what is
I
this?
see 333 all the time. Yeah, I'm big on angel numbers.
Okay,
1111.
a little article too on the 108.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get our practice on. So we're gonna come to standing so that we can do our first, and you're gonna need a wall too. So make sure you have a wall you can use. Plug this and welcome to the jungle, baby.
Well, it's just in the fruit, like everywhere else, like kind of like clammy. But like just right here, it's so heated.
All right.
We're going like.
So starting out, so whenever you guys get. We'll start out with our feet shoulder width the heart. And then we'll start with our swing side to side, and they want us to do this about 8 times in each direction. 1, 2, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. Then step one of your feet back for the calf stretch. Not gonna be very far, it's gonna be pretty close, maybe like shoulder width apart. And then we're just going to lift and lower, lift, back foot and lower, lift, lower, go 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch legs. Everyone comes forward, and then we'll start back with that calf stretch. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then we're going to switch our legs again. So the left foot comes, or the opposite foot comes forward. And then we're gonna start with lowering our hips. So once we're here, kind of like you're sitting in a chair, and then coming up, sitting down in a chair, up, and we'll keep going for 8, 7, 6, 5, breaths, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Switch seats. And then we'll do it again. Just like you're sitting back in a chair to stretch the legs. Back. Up. Up. Working with the breath. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then come to stretch your feet shoulder width apart. And once you're here, you can start to come into a wide leg forward fold. If you need to keep the knees bent, feel free. Hands can be on the ground if that feels good. Take 3 deep breaths and let your body fully relax. And then exhale, walk your hands over to the right. Holding your foot. Take 3 deep breaths here. And then slowly walk your hands over to the other side. Deep breaths here. And walk it back to center, walking your hands through the center of your legs. Fully relaxed here, holding. Use your hands, walking forward. Up nice and slow, coming back. As we come all the way up, feet come to hips distance apart. As we come into our back stretch, taking a little bit of a bend in your knees. Inhale, lift the chest. With your eye gaze, hands to the lower back. Find that heart opener, that little back stretch. Now take your eye gaze over your right shoulder. Take 3 deep breaths. Look as far as you can with your eyes to the right. Head comes back to center after the 3rd breath. Look over the left shoulder. Here. Stay back up to our standing position. And then slowly coming to our wall sit for our next one. Coming to the wall. Coming down into our feet. Remember, feet hip distance apart, knees over the ankles. And try to find a comfortable place like a 7 instead of a 10. Sit with your back against the wall. And then once it becomes slightly uncomfortable, move up the wall about an inch or 2. And then hold that position. Once you come into this position, we're going to be holding for 4 minutes. If you need to get out of the posture though at all at any time, I want you to. Remember to come into some nice deep breathing while you're here. And if the legs start to shake, that's quite normal. Deep belly breathing. Eyes closed, maybe in. Maybe find a mantra. Strong. But also remembering that if you have not been it's expressing our bodies. Minutes left. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That's enough. It is not hard. I will not be. 7 seconds. Distracted ourselves. Save this one from. standard round oscillation. Okay. Now come up off the wall and hold yourself in a forward fold as you allow your head to come down. We're going to stay here for a minute. Just breathe. And out through the nose. The body is at all shaking right now. That's quite normal too. If it's not, that's quite normal too. 30 more seconds, just breathing. Okay, slowly back up. And then we're gonna make our way onto the mat into our butterfly pose, our Baddha Konasana. We're gonna bring our soles of the feet to touch and our heels close towards the groin. And then we're gonna be pushing into our feet and we're gonna be lifting our hips from here. We're gonna lifting our hips for 1 minute. So when you're ready, start to inhale, lift your hips up off the floor. Remember, heels close to normal. I can grab a little wherever. Tiger, I down to the floor. And then when you're ready, your knees 2 inches up on each side. Now we're gonna pull up to the knee. Start on the ground. Touching. Nice. I'll say. Now move your knees 2 inches higher on each side and forward for another. Hold down. Your body. Let it be. Okay, now we will switch this closer and another 2 minutes. Bring the roots back, almost again, pushing into a palm that's not there. Separates to is each lowering them down just a little bit more and then hold. Next one, you stop it. Go around. Inches, we don't want to take rest.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah, I can't hear what you're saying, Jennifer.
Did you say something?
We can't really hear you.
Oh, so sorry. That's gonna be, you want me to start over?
No, with just the last you said. We couldn't
Last
hear
one,
you.
you just hold for another 2 minutes, but if you want to get out of it or you need to get out of it, please do.
Okay.
So are we just like with our legs relaxed, or are we still up on it shaking?
Still up just a little bit, like when we began where they're kind of like up 2 inches from our relaxed position. So this is our last one. One more minute. And again, it should feel like you're pushing the inside of your thigh into somebody's palm that's pushing back into your leg. So same kind of push-pull. Fifteen seconds to go. And when you're ready, slowly bring your knees together and give yourself a big hug. Take your time. Walk around it all too after you finish. Holy moly. How's that for you?
That was really hot.
Yeah.
And I feel like I went into like a meditative almost. And then like, I came right out. It's like really, I feel like the whole time, like I heard you, but like I didn't. And then like at the last 2 minutes, I was like more.
Yeah. Love it. And you had a shake going?
Yeah.
The legs were shaking.
Yeah.
They were shaking.
I didn't.
The chair was the hardest.
The chair was the hardest.
Yes.
How about you, Deb?
I definitely had the shake going. I found that if I flatten my back against the mat,
Uh-huh.
rolling my pelvis,
Uh-huh.
that stopped the shaking. But if I let it, roll forward where I had a little space between the mat and my lower back, then had the shake going.
It's like the
It's
tension,
intense.
right? Like tension stops the movement of the energy. And then when we soften, it allows it to like move. Because I definitely noticed that for me too. It was like I could stop the shaking if I wanted to. You know what I mean? I could like be like, oh, but also if I just let it, like I could feel it. It felt like almost tremors to me. Like it's almost like when you I've had kind of releases like that after Kundalini yoga sometimes where my body just kind of shakes out some stuff. And so yeah, it's a pretty varied sequence. So you can do this more. You could do this like one time. You could do it 3 times going up and 3 times going down is like the more advanced practice. But I also found that like getting the sensation where we feel like I kept telling you where it should feel like if I was there, I would have gone and put my hands on your thighs so you could have pushed against them to feel like where we should have those knees too, because it's almost like that push pull is where the shake begins. So if you try this again, think of it as like somebody gently pushing their hand on the inside of your thigh to press your legs down, and then you pressing your leg against their palm to keep it up. So also that sensation keeps us kind of in the engaged space where that shake can start to take place too. Not resistance per se, but just like we want it to kind of come up. Sometimes as we sit there, we can get calm and the knees can start to relax down. Also, as we start to allow ourselves to get like more calm in the pose. So we do want to find that slight like resistance, and then that's where the shake comes from. And so the other,
Yeah, it's like
no, go ahead.
I had to look for the spot. I had to
Me
look
too.
for the spot. Like, oh,
Me
okay,
too.
there it is.
Yeah,
I did too.
I can
Same.
feel it right up my glute.
Yes, me too. And my
Very interesting.
was
I
like,
felt that my glutes were shaking.
yeah, mine too.
I feel like my glutes were shaking more than my legs. Well, my legs were still shaking.
And mine was total like groin area. Like,
Yeah, like I'm like hotter
mhm,
back here and like my glute area, but I'm still
purging those lower chakras,
Yeah.
you know? So, this is a practice I like to do, especially if I'm feeling tension. That's one of those things that for me, I did have trauma in those lower chakras. And so for me, those are my problem areas. So I like this one a lot for it. And whenever I'm done, I notice that my knees can usually go down a little bit further when I relax because I've moved some energy out of the hip area from binding shake. There are YouTube. Uh-oh, can you hear me? Sorry, I think we froze for a sec, but there are also,
Your video paused, but we could hear you.
okay,
Oh.
cool. You can find a YouTube video where they'll guide you through this also. If it's something like that, you're like, okay, I want to practice it on my own, but I want to have the cues there. You can totally look it up on YouTube. And there's, I think the guy who created it actually does a video. So I'll link that into the chat as well.
It's like, this is TRE, the tension trauma release exercise, right?
This is something they actually certify people in too. So if it's something that you like enjoy, you can look more into the program, and they offer a whole program of certification to become a practitioner of TRE.
And it's
I actually-
interesting with each position, which part of the muscle, like which part of your body you're trying to release, which, with the wider legs, it's saying the front, like, yeah, they're all different.
Totally. It hits like all the spots there, you know? Were you gonna say something too, Deb?
I actually just finished a course called Fix Your Feet.
Uh-huh.
So when we were going up on the sides of the feet, so that's something that they're training you to do to strengthen the ligaments and the tendons in your feet. And
Love that.
interestingly enough, they were talking about the arch of the foot. So if you
Uh-huh.
have an extra high arch, it's because your calves are so tight. So you need to do calf stretching exercise.
Oh, man, I need to do that then.
Sure I get this right. And if they're flat, your calves are weak. So you need to do calf strengthening exercises. Makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Strengthen
totally.
and then higher arch, so you can adjust, your feet. Tissue can transform a little bit. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
So
I
cool.
like that.
Everything translates, right? It's so funny. It's like if our feet are off, then the knees are off, then the hips are off, then the shoulders off. So it's like we gotta work it from the bottom up. So this is TRE. I'm happy to share it with you guys. I hope you enjoyed the practice. If you feel called to, I'll put the video and then you can practice it in the future too, or you can just work through the commands from your manual as well. And then we're gonna move into our Wim Hof breath. So I'm gonna talk about it real quick and then we'll practice around. So Wim Hof breathing method is simple and easy. Anyone can do it. Just follow the steps below. We recommend practicing right after waking or before a meal when your stomach is still empty. That's because we're doing the kumbhaka, the breath retention. So if you guys don't want to practice since we just ate lunch, you can also, I'll send a video in the chat and you can practice it later too if you feel like your belly's full. And so note that Wim Hof breathing can affect motor control, in rare cases lead to loss of consciousness. Always sit or lie down before practicing the techniques and never practice while piloting a vehicle or in a body of water. My partner was doing this in the swimming pool without me home and literally like one day almost passed out in the pool. I was like super upset. So this is like, it is like, it can cause you to get a little bit lightheaded because we're doing a hyperventilation breath. So I want you guys to be very mindful of that when you're practicing. If you're feeling activated, don't practice the breath. Do it and when you're kind of like in a nice space. So it says Wim Hof is scientifically proven to be able to control the autonomic nervous system with the Wim Hof method. So we can think of this breath as a way of training our nervous system to regulate. And that will be our purpose of using it to heal in our trauma-informed platform. So what you do when you practice the breath is you get into a comfortable seat like we do with all pranayama. Sitting or lying down, you could do it either way. And you just make sure that you can expand the lungs so that you don't feel any constriction. And the way we begin is we start with 30 to 40 deep breaths. So it sounds like this. So inhaling deeply through the nose or the mouth and exhaling unforced through the mouth. Fully inhale through the belly, then the chest, and let it go unforced. Repeat these 30 to 40 times in short, powerful bursts. And you may experience lightheadedness and tingling sensations in your fingers and feet. These side effects are completely harmless. If you are obviously feeling though lightheaded, like you're gonna pass out, please pause and then you can come back to it later. The hold after the last exhalation. Inhale one final time as deeply as you can, then let the air out and stop breathing. You're going to hold on the exhalation. So this is what makes this a very advanced pranayama as well, is that normally in yogic breaths, we're doing our kumbhaka on the inhale. This one, we're doing the kumbhaka on the exhalation. And then we hold. After the last exhalation, we inhale one final time as deep as we can. Then we let the air out, hold. That's where the kumbhaka is. And then we do a recovery breath after holding. So we hold that breath for 1 minute the first round, which it doesn't say here. 1 minute hold first. 1.5 minutes second. And then 2 minutes for the third round. And then after each one, you're going to do a recovery breath. So we go through our 30 to 40. Then we inhale big. Then we exhale all the way. Then we find our breath hold. and we hold the breath for 1 minute. After 1 minute, we take a big inhalation in, and then we hold for 15 seconds. After the 15 seconds, you completely let go, and then you go into cycle 2. So you start to inhale and exhale again for your rounds of 30 to 40 breaths. So you're back to and then you come back after doing 30 to 40 rounds with the Kumbhaka again. So you inhale, exhale, and then hold. This time you're holding for 1.5 minutes, or attempting to hold for 1.5 minutes. And then same thing, you do another recovery breath after the hold. So you take another big inhalation, hold for 15 seconds, and then you release and come back into your third round. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. After 30 to 40 rounds of that, you do the same thing. You do a big inhale, big exhale, and hold for Kumbhaka in your last round for up to 2 minutes if possible. So this is like a training process. So when you try it initially, you might find, hey, I can only do 1 minute, and that's fine. Over time, the more we practice this, the more we can start to get into those 2 minutes, 3 minutes, sometimes 4 and 5 minutes, honestly. He has some advanced practices where they do that. But the key is what he's teaching himself to do, and you'll notice, as panic starts to come in when you're holding the breath, this is our opportunity to calm ourselves down and bring the heart rate down. And so, in the guided one that I'm going to put in with you, he's guiding you. And I really like it because he's like, let your body do what the body is meant to do. Trust your breath, trust your body, but at any time, if you need to breathe, you can. But what we're doing is we're training the nervous system. We're coming back down into our parasympathetic nervous system so that we can come back into our rest and digest. But we're doing that with our mind, right? Because everything in the body is activating us to start to go into fight or flight. And so what it is a training ground for teaching us how to calm down when we're brought up into that sympathetic nervous system. How can we then recognize that and bring ourselves back down into parasympathetic? I will tell you that if you practice this, like when you're stressed or anxious or already a little bit activated, it's going to be a lot harder. For me, it's a good indicator of where I am in my window of tolerance, because when I'm in my window of tolerance, I can usually hold for 2 minutes, no problem. When I'm activated, 1 minute seems like forever. So this is also a good indicator of where we are in our nervous system. So keep that in mind when you do practice this breath, it can be a little bit activating. So we want to make sure we have a good mantra. We want to make sure that we've got a good place that we can practice where we feel safe and comfortable. And it is a breath that you practice lying down.
Oh, you do lie down. That's what I was just going to ask.
You can, or you can sit either way. For me, I usually have an easier time if I'm lying down, just because I feel more relaxed when I'm lying down.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I know some people, if you have back problems and it hurts to lie down, maybe seated might. So this breath I taught you guys in the shamanic journey. So when you practice this in the morning, you'll be doing 1 round, the 3 rounds, but for like 1 cycle of a Wim Hof breath. And like everything that I teach, I want you guys to just keep in mind to listen to your bodies. If it's something that you feel like you'd rather disregard and not practice, that's okay too. So, but it's been a helpful tool for me. So I hope it can be that for you. And then on the page after that, there's some book suggestions here as well. These have been some books that I've enjoyed also. Some of them I think we've talked about as well.
You Can Kill Your Life. I just haven't read it. So I need to read it, and I have it out. That's so funny. Yeah, I had that book.
I think that Peter Levine is also one of the I think he might be the guy who did, different guy. Never mind, delete. So anyway, there's the polyvagal theory, vagus nerve, and vagus yoga. I think this might be only a audiobook, but I loved it. Talk about like, this is what kind of introduced me into like the vagus nerve healing. And so it's super informative, easy, fast read too. What Happened to You by Bruce D. Perry and Oprah Winfrey. This is a beautiful book. Bruce D. Perry is a doctor. Oprah Winfrey opened a school for girls in Africa. And they were girls that had been, you know, in traumatic situations before. And so she noticed that these girls were struggling terribly to get comfortable in this new environment that was comfortable, right? Like, because they had gotten so used to being in discomfort that it was almost activating their trauma to be in peace and calm and quiet. And so the girls were having fits at the school. They were crying in the middle of class. They were acting up. They were having a lot of behavioral problems. And she's like, what did I do? Oh my gosh. So she calls this doctor, Bruce D. Perry, and he comes out and he's like, these girls have PTSD. And when he arrived to the school, he said that they were outside in the lawn, a lot of them dancing. And of course, like they're African, they're from, you know what I mean? But he was like, this is the medicine that they need. This is what they're doing intuitively to heal their bodies. They need more of this. And so he talks a little bit about like trauma and how to approach it. So this is another really good book. Then we've got Overcoming Trauma Through Yoga by David Emerson. I think I shared this one with you guys the other day. We talked about the body keeps score. Waking the Tiger was mentioned a few times throughout the manual. This is a bit of a heavy read. I'm just going to tell you ahead of time. If you're in an activated state trying to regulate out, I would just take it very, very sparingly. You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. Absolutely love this book. It's so uplifting and positive that no matter where you are in your trauma, it can't really be super activating. So I really like it for that reason. And then Shaking Medicine by Bradford Keeney is another good one. It just talks about how a African tribesman kept getting people coming to him for healings. And the first question that he would ask them when they would arrive is, when did you stop dancing? When did you stop playing? When did you stop laughing? And so it kind of talks about how shaking and dancing and playing are all really important forms of healing the body as well. And so I like it for that as well. Yeah. So I will put the Wim Hof breath in the chat if you guys feel like you want to practice it today at some point when you don't have full bellies. And then you will have the opportunity to practice it tomorrow morning on the shamanic journey. And then I'm so looking forward to taking your classes, Deborah and Audrey, tomorrow. If you have any questions or you need anything, my phone will be on all day. I'll be available. I've so been enjoying your videos too, and your sharing, and I really, really appreciate you guys for showing up. I know everybody has stuff going on in their lives right now too that you're working through, and you're still here and showing up and being present, and I really, really appreciate that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to all three of you.
And thank you so much. It's like, oh, can't be over yet. Let's do it again.
Yes.
Right? That's what I was thinking.
Uh-huh. We'll just make a
You're
little.
an awesome You're really an awesome teacher.
Oh,
Your
thank
energy.
You really are.
I really, really appreciate that. I mean, for me, it's just like, I always want to do it justice. So that's always something in the back of my mind. I was telling Tammy, I felt like I kept telling myself, I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if I'm qualified for like years and years and years. And I felt like spirit really just kind of shoved me into it. It's like, look, the information's needed. You have it. Please put it out there and the right people will come. So I just am trusting the process. And I thank you guys for your work, because I know that you also hold space for so many people. And as you step into this space of healing, not only your lineage and your communities and those that we share with, I'm just super impressed by you guys and super grateful to share this time and space. And I know it's not the end. I just want to reiterate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So are you there all the time? Do you teach other classes? What's your thing?
I do. I've been living in Costa Rica now for 2 years, and I've been working with Inner Sea for about a year and a half. Definitely stepped into a lot more full-time teacher role in the last probably 6 months here. As one of the other teachers had to go back to the States. And so, yeah, it just kind of fell into place, and I'm really, really grateful. I love working with Courtney and Madison too. I'm really, really grateful to just have a platform and a space where I get to meet amazing people like you guys. The other thing I always tell people is like, I'm grateful to step into these places because I still am learning and I get to learn from you guys. And so it's really been a pleasure. I feel like you guys are also intelligent, and smart, and ask like the best questions and bring the best knowledge, and such a to share.
Are you part of the 300 yoga teacher training?
Yes. Yeah.
And Deborah, I was gonna ask you, did you watch that Greg Braden 7 Mirrors documentary yet?
No, I did not.
That's okay. I started it yesterday, and it's really great. So maybe we can all talk about it tomorrow too.
Yeah, I'll watch that tonight.
Yeah, that'll be a good one for this evening.
Is it in the WhatsApp?
Yes.
Jennifer had sent it yesterday. It's in a YouTube
Okay, good.
link.
Well,
I also, sorry, go ahead, Deb.
No, I was just gonna say I have a lot of work to do so I can teach a class tomorrow since I'm not caught up in my homework videos. So this is gonna be putting a little bit of all of that together, but it's gonna be fine.
Okay, and whatever you want to, whatever you want
And
to.
I'll go back and do the individual ones, of course, so.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it at all, Deb. Honestly, just, I don't want anybody like stressing out about things. It's just like, this is all supposed to be like nice and therapeutic and healing. And that's more important to me than you guys stressing about it. You know that I'm a resource that you can reach out to at any time too. So if you feel like you want to ask me questions about it, I'll be accessible for plenty after we close the sessions.
Thank you. And I think I'm over my kind of freak out about recording of it.
It's so funny because you're so good at it. I was like watching your video and I was like, this looks professional. Like the ones that I've posted, I feel like I'm always like in this weird place. And you have like this persona of like an already like someone that I would watch on YouTube to take yoga. Like it was very cool. So I think you should open your YouTube yoga healing channels.
Yeah, well, I was just talking, my business here is locals, but a lot of seasonal people who come in for the winter, and a lot of them live on boats and they're leaving in the next few weeks. And they're like, how are we going to, we want to take your classes.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm definitely going to do an online class because
Yes.
those ladies go home and they're not going to do yoga.
Yeah.
Because I think my class is kind of tailored to them, people who aren't very athletic.
Totally.
Right?
I think you would.
They go to a regular yoga
Absolutely.
studio and they're like, can't do this,
That's my wish for you.
So-
Audrey, I want you down.
What did you say?
I said, and Audrey, I want you down in the jungle.
Yeah,
This is just
I know.
bossing around. No,
I'm
I
kind of in
support
the
you.
jungle. I'm kind of in the jungle here.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're in a beautiful location. We all need to come visit you too.
Oh my gosh. I know.
Let me show you just a little of my door.
That would be great. Oh my gosh. Oh, so beautiful.
So
Gorgeous.
I have lots of trees and it's like an 1.5 acre property. So lots of little pathways to cruise around and you saw the other side.
That is so cool.
There's like a little balcony here too with trees.
Like her own little.
Retreat.
Yeah, everyone's like, why don't you do retreats here? You can see the ocean everywhere. So yeah, not too bad.
Super beautiful.
So far, so good. Hopefully
I love
can-
that we all have ocean views right now. Like we all,
Yeah.
cleansing was a big theme for it too.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. All right, lovely ladies. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day. I look forward to tomorrow. And remember, I'm available too for the rest of the day. So feel free to message, call, whatever you need.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.